Let's play. Do they have anyone we want? Our night daily game on the NBA trade deadline looming on February 10th. This is Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Thanks very much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen. For your second listen today, grab Locked On Now on the Locked On NBA channel on YouTube or Locked On Now on podcast, giving you a nightly recap of all the games in the NBA. By the way, February 10th, 2-hour NBA trade deadline live extravaganza on our YouTube channel, Locked On NBA. So subscribe now and be there. Josh Lloyd, John Corrales, and the crew will be hosting that one with Kim Becker at the helm, giving you all the insight, fantasy takes, and the rest on what will be taking place on the trade deadline. All right, the Jazz trade deadline looms. Let's go play. We'll share our screen as we often do. I don't know if this does any good for you on YouTube, but we will do it. It's the ESPN trade machine. We start with the Houston Rockets today. And the Houston Rockets, John Wall, I don't think of interest. Eric Gordon is an $18 million contract, 3 years. That is hard to swallow, but he has been great. Houston would probably love to get off that deal. This is where trading, frankly, Joe Ingles' contract is a completely viable situation. Now, the Jazz, with the tax implications, have to figure out whether they want a 33-year-old guard with 2 more years on his deal. But Eric Gordon is shooting 49% from the floor, 43% from three. He's having his best shooting year of his year. Effective field goal percentage is 60%. He would give us a third ball handler. He's switched between the 1 and the 2 his career. He might be the perfect complement in some ways to being on the backside of Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell. He is old, though. We're back into that game, and he's not big. He's physically big. He's 6'3", 215. He just turned 33. He's a Christmas baby. So that's an interesting one. You'd have to couple another salary with that for Eric Gordon. But you go, Joe Ingles' $11 million expiring contract could seriously be of interest here in this circumstance for Houston if they want to get out from under this deal. Eric Gordon's been oft injured as well. It's probably worth mentioning. While he's having a great year, he played 27 games last year. He played 36 the year before. 3 prior years to that, 75, 69, 68. And he has been playing 30 minutes a night. So, it's an interesting, that's probably as good a name as a replacement of Joe Ingles. Changes who you are. He's got some toughness to him, and he battles. Backup center Daniel Tice is signed to a 4-year, $8 million deal. I'm certain they would love to get off that deal. I don't know that we have any interest in that, but I'm certain they'd love to get off that. David Nwaba is an interesting player. They signed to a 3-year, $4.6 million deal. I don't know that they care about getting off that or having it. But that's where the Rockets sit. So that Eric Gordon situation, it's a big burden to take that $18 million contract with 2 more years on it. Let's not minimize that. He's also been oft injured. You'd have to feel that's a gutsy move. That is a big time gutsy move. We move to the Lakers and Clippers. This is part of the story of the trade deadline to me that's most interesting. The Lakers and the Clippers and the Warriors, who we talked about yesterday, are so far over the tax that they're so limited in what they can do from a trade standpoint that I'm so curious to watch when teams have to unload guys or want to make moves, or someone like Eric Gordon. Maybe you're getting a draft pick back from Houston for taking that contract. I just think Sacramento continues to be on this downward spiral. And are they going to move Harrison Barnes and let him out of jail? And is there really anyone that's going to go pay for it? Because of the contending teams, particularly in the West, if you look, Phoenix never wants to go over the tax. And Phoenix is, I'm going to check it right here. Phoenix's cap, we're going to look at Phoenix tomorrow, but Phoenix is $7 million under the tax line. So they have a little wiggle room. They might be able to make a move. They're also in one of those situations where they have perfect chemistry. Memphis, do they really want to push the timeline and lose minutes for some of their young guys? The Lakers, Clippers, Warriors, Jazz are also so far over the tax. I don't know what they do. Denver's already made their move. We talked about it yesterday. Denver, I believe, is $1.9 million under the tax right now. And so they've already made their move to get under the tax. This limits, and then Dallas has got the Finney Smith and the Brunson problem we talked about yesterday. I I don't see a robust market for teams to go get that mid-level player in the market. And I think that opens up an opportunity for someone to actually pounce a little bit without having to give up a huge amount. And I could be totally wrong. We could see like Jeremy Grant's talked about, and Detroit doesn't have to trade it, but 2 first-round draft picks for Jeremy Grant. You better be really certain you're winning the title for that one, or pretty close. And I just don't think there's teams out there that are giving up 2 first-round picks and taking in salary like that. The Clippers and the Lakers have no picks. Also, that would be the other part. Clippers and Lakers and Denver have no picks to give away because they moved them. Denver not as bad on the Aaron Gordon trade, but a little bit. In regards to the Clippers roster, Kawhi, Paul George are signed for 3 more years. They have Eric Bledsoe. They probably would like to get off, but they took that in the offseason, maybe willingly. He's been okay. Morris, 2 years, $15 million is just really good. Kennard, they re-sign this. They might be, we've always liked Luke Kennard a little bit. Joe Ingles for Luke Kennard. Joe Ingles' contract moves in for Luke Kennard. Again, are we willing to take 3 years at $13 million? Kennard is at least interesting in the sense that he's a ball handler. He's 6'5", 206 pounds. Not a great defensive player. He's playing about 30 minutes a night this year, shooting 43% from 3. I don't know the Clippers really care that much about the tax with Steve Ballmer, but there's a move where maybe you get some second round pick or some sort of asset with it, or maybe you just make that move, and you're moving Joe Ingles' contract in that spot for Luke Kennard. We now have an issue for the next 3 years where you've got that's a contract that probably is supposed to come off our books, not on our books, for tax purposes coming up. Reggie Jackson, Serge Ibaka, Zubac, Justice Winslow, no interest. Nicholas Batum on the best contract in the NBA, and that's probably it. I like Preston, who got hurt. Boston's been a good signing. Lawrence Frank's a master and just does a great job with that team. We look at the Lakers. Russell at 44, no interest, obviously. LeBron at 41, Anthony Davis at 35. They're willing to move Thielen, Horton, Tucker, but they want something back. They're not going to be doing a contract move with Joe Ingles. It's really nothing to play here, but this is also just worth taking a look at. This is why the Lakers are in trouble. They're 19.6 over the tax. Thielen, Horton, Tucker at $9 million and Kendrick Nunn at $5 million are their players they can trade. So they're looking to bring back a 14. They might do Eric Gordon. But then I think they actually have to add in another player in there to get that done. Malik Monk they're going to have to re-sign in the offseason. They have no bird rights to him. He's having a really good year. So maybe they throw him in to get something. And then they have everybody on the minimums. The Lakers are really, really hamstrung by anything that they might be able to do there. Let's look at Memphis as well today, only because I'm trying to finish this up by the end of the week. And tomorrow we'll do Minnesota, New Orleans, Phoenix, and then Portland, Sacramento, and San Antonio on the final day. So Memphis, Steven Adams is sitting on 17. We wouldn't have any interest on that. Dylan Brooks is at 12. They might be willing to do that. Like, I don't know the internal on Dylan Brooks. They seem to love him. He brings some toughness. But this is now John Morant's team, Jaren Jackson's team, and Desmond Bane's team. And maybe there's a reason why Dylan Brooks doesn't work there for that, and they might be willing to do that. They're $20 million under the tax, so they could actually take on money in some ways. An interesting one is they could actually probably at $20 million, they're $3 million out of the cap. So never mind. That was a bad idea. Tyus Jones, listening to Sean Coleman on Locked On Grizzlies, his feeling is that between DeAnthony Melton, Tyus Jones, Brandon Clark, and maybe Xavier Tillman, he had 4 players, though Tillman signed for a few more years. He had 4 players, and his point was that they probably keep 2 of them. Oh, Kyle Anderson, DeAnthony Melton, Tyus Jones, Brandon Clark. He feels like they can only keep 2 of them. Clark will be the top priority. An interesting move is Kyle Anderson. You trade, you give up a draft asset with Joe Ingles' contract for Kyle Anderson and get a similar player to Joe Ingles back without the 3-point shooting. I don't love Kyle Anderson's lack of range shooting. There's a lot of other aspects of his game that's pretty super. DeAnthony Melton is a great defensive, tough player. He's got 8 years. He's got $8 million at 3 more years on that deal. Does he fit in as a guy who might be a perfect complement to play next to Donovan Mitchell? He's physical and strong and defends and can take Donovan off the top guy. His shooting has been erratic at best in his career. He's at career 34%. He's 32% this year and struggling. He was good against us as he hit a bunch of shots. He's been good recently, but he's thought of as he's only 6'2". He's super small, but he's thought of as an elite defensive player. Maybe he's a compliment next to Donovan, but over time. But again, then you're dealing with 2'6" guards. You probably would rather have like a Reggie Bullock who's 6'5" and the next generation of that, or something of those sort. All right, so that's a look at Memphis, Los Angeles, and Houston. Some interesting things in there. It's where the Joe Ingles contract still might be able to play in some ways for the Utah Jazz. This has been Locked On Jazz today. Thanks very much for tuning into the show. Want to remind you as well, TurboTax is out there for you. TurboTax doing great things for you. People think unusual circumstance mean complicated taxes, but for TurboTax Live, the experts, they make things interesting and they get it. They get all it done. Unique lives. Maybe it's crypto. Maybe it's an up and coming small business. Maybe it's raising rambunctious twins. Whatever it is, TurboTax Live has experts who can answer your tax questions, walk you through the whole process, do your taxes for you start to finish, and they help you with every deduction you deserve. No matter your unique situation, you can talk to TurboTax Live expert through the phone or the computer without leaving your house. TurboTax Live experts are here to help however you need. And if you need an extra hand with your taxes, send it off to them. TurboTax Live experts. An interesting life means you can get an even greater refund. Check it out at TurboTax Live. This has been Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Thanks very much for making us your first listen today. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Feel free to send me any comments at dlock09@gmail.com or on Twitter about the kind of splitting up the show if it works for you or doesn't. And then also tomorrow we'll come back, react to Denver, and look at some more teams on the ballgame, see if the Jazz can sweep the Denver Nuggets this year, as the Minnesota Timberwolves are looming in that 7th spot after a monster win last night, and they play no one coming up. So it should be an easy stretch for them. They're going to be charging. We're going to feel them. We're going to feel the Timberwolves here shortly. It's going to get really nervous. Have a great one. Talk to you soon.